Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Hello, everyone. Please wear your headset like I am. Thank you very much. We are all going to try to not speak too fast for our interpreters who are doing an absolutely great job. So thank you for joining us for this conference program for Museum Connection. For those who didn't have the opportunity with us yesterday, we have breached the question of the reinvention of cultural institutions by questioning the possibility to change the criteria from which we evaluate the success of a cultural institution, the possibility of playing an increased societal role by opening up to collaboration and the cultural project with other sectors like companies, like the medical sectors, collaborating more with people who are volunteers. We've also spoken about a purpose to create a narrative on the purpose of a cultural institution. And we've also spoken about the environmental responsibility of cultural institutions and how to implement an ecologic transition. So there was also little snippets of cultural retails, such as will be the case today. This morning, we will talk about topics that have to do with innovation, with regard to digital innovation by exploring the metaverse, and also in the field of innovation in terms of the own resources through renewing the relationship with corporations and in the field of cultural retail. I am delighted to welcome Morgane Bouchet, who is the program director for the Metaverse and extended realities with Orange Innovation. Julia Luczak-Rougeaux, who is our moderator, and she is the editor-in-chief of TOM.travel, which is a media online that explores trends linked to the digital in the culture and traveling spaces. So please give us an introduction to the metaverse that we've had for several months. So please explain what the opportunities are for the culture sector and for heritage and cultural tourism and how we can prepare to this. The floor is yours. Thank you, Annabelle, for your introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this first conference of the day, which is going to be significant. We're going to talk about Metaverse right from the get-go, so that way we're all going to be very awake. We're going to try to understand what are the issues revolving around the Metaverse. The Metaverse is a topic that has really been in the media. I think that we're saying Metaverse in French and Metaverse in English. So thank you, Morgan, for this clarification. So before we start, in a few words, can you explain who you are and what you are doing with Orange? And then we'll really tackle the definition of Metaverse. So hello, everyone. Morgane Bouchet. I'm in charge of all of the augmented reality, virtual reality, and Metaverse with Orange. I've been working on this topic for several years now. A long time ago, I had the opportunity to work with Orange on the Second Life project, in which Orange had developed a city to recruit and to promote its image and communicate. So it's interesting to go back to topics that I broached 10 years ago. My role is to give the ambition of the group in the topic of the metaverse and explain and educate people on what it is and the perspectives for a telecom company and the role that we can play there. I'm also a teacher at Sciences Po on the same topic since 2016. So you really are an expert then. So let us start at the beginning. Let us start with a definition of the metaverse. for those who don't know. So I'm going to show a slide so that the public can read this. Today, there's no academic definition for the metaverse. There are several definitions, several analyses. But what we can keep in mind is a few keywords. It is a virtual 3D world. We're talking about a synthetic 3D world that is at the cusp between virtual and real. It is a persistent world. It is a world that never stops. The social dynamic is very important there, even if it's not a social network, but the social part and the interactivity is important. But this doesn't say that everything that we hear today is metaverse. We can see it everywhere. There's a part of buzzword, but behind this, there's something that is really important and sustainable. So we shouldn't fall into the trap of the wow effect. And this dimension of sharing of a parallel world that is interactive is something that is there to stay, I believe. It will probably take the form of something that looks like a video game environment, maybe. This could last for a while. We've got a few examples today. The inspiration of the design and of the customer experience that comes from the video game is really very catchy and is going to last for a while. What you're saying is interesting because we don't know yet what this is going to look like because it is still being built. Metaverse is not something that will stay as is today. It's starting to emerge. Well, it's starting to emerge for the public. The media is talking about it. There are conferences. There's a lot of talk around this. To simplify this, we talk a lot about the metaverse by making an analogy with Fortnite and Roblox, which are persistent 3D universes. When Fortnite organizes live concerts within Fortnite, when the artist is in the studio doing this, we really have a connection between what is real and what is virtual. So this is a form of metaverse which is interesting to learn and to start to look into the use made by the millennials. So is it that vision that is going to last, given that this vision is split into two? You have worlds that are 3D worlds that are centralized, that are completely steered and mastered versus worlds of these types that are decentralized, like the sandbox, which is the basis of mobile game of app games. You also have a metaverse that also comes out of the world of research, the academic world, which is the vision of an augmented world where real comes back into its own from a physical perspective, and this real world is augmented by interfaces that are augmenting the world and a new immersion, and thus a metaverse. So maybe we're going to go there in stages, but all of this is happening, and you need to find the right cursors to explain what this whole metaverse is. You said that it's not a social media, but Meta, which is Facebook, is one of the companies that is heavily invested in the metaverse. So can we talk about an augmented social media? So what is the use of a metaverse? I think that the social network dimension goes back to a very long time. Humans need connection. They have a social interaction every day, all the time. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about humans. We're talking about human relationships. So the social relation is important. I'm casting it aside because it's so obvious. Social is necessarily at the heart of all of these interactions with the world. So for me, these meta projects are an evolution. We talk a lot about metaverse, and then we also talk about something else, which is Web 3.0. which is the next stage of the internet, and the metaverse is a transition. For those who don't know what Web 3.0 is, can you please give a definition? Well, we had the Web 1.0 at the beginning of the internet, at the end of the 90s, and then the Web 2.0 with a lot of mobile, a lot of social, everything became an app. And then the next stage could be another form of internet. The Web 3.0 is a continuity where everything becomes 3D immersive. So it's a continuity. So my Facebook page in the Web 2.0 was static with just photos and comments. And tomorrow I'll create my virtual space, which can be my living room, and then I'll invite my friends to come and hang out in my living room. And what is the link between the metaverse and the Web 3.0? Well, metaverse is a transition because it's not going to cover all of the internet. So today in the corporate sector, for instance, because otherwise you're going to have a metaverse for the corporate sector. So the Internet 3.0 goes further. It brings on board notions of decentralization, of open worlds, interoperability, and all of this broadens the prism of the metaverse today. You said there will be metaverses, and it's important to understand there won't be a single point where we go saying, I'm in the metaverse. You're not saying, I'm on the social media. You go on various social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It'll be the same principle. Well, here it's the same notion. You can see on this slide that you have different worlds that exist. You've got things that come from gaming, others come from social, others come from the telecom world. What is interesting is to talk about what Korea is doing. They're creating the metaverse for all of the country's services. So I think this is going to exist for a while, and then at some point, all of that is going to be regulated. It's more than a bubble because Roblox is 40 million of monthly active users. So these things are already there. It's a new form of interface. It's a new form of navigation, of interaction with leisure, with culture. You can also say that it is an interaction with objects, with people. And all of this tends to say that it brings people closer together. Today, the period of the 2 years of lockdown with the screens, with a lot of lag, was very frustrating. I was lucky to be able to have meetings in immersion with my team, and I can tell you it's much more fluid. We don't look at our phones every 30 seconds. There's very little latency. The oral interaction and the body interaction are very important because those are signals and messages. We also see this evolution bringing people closer together. You spoke about video games. You talk about a platform. Today, how do we access metaverses? Today, these are websites. They are predominantly accessible through browsers from your either from your smartphones or virtual reality headsets, so multiple devices. And some are already fully open and multiverse. So you can enter via a virtual headset. Other friends can jump in from their mobile phone, and others yet from another point of entry. And it's fascinating, and the connection happens. If you want to be further immersed, a virtual reality headset is going to contribute more than a simple laptop screen. Yes, I was talking about body movements and the interactions, which are very important. The fact that we are also the first person to contribute this immersion, this fluidness into the interaction. So these are just billions of data that need to be processed. It's got very little latency. its important computing solutions. This is why Orange is supporting all of this through a lot of work to demonstrate that it's there, that the technology is there. It's a new form of grammar, so we need to be humble vis-a-vis this and learn, especially in terms of the culture sector, to discover some things remotely. Well, let's talk about the field of culture because we're there for this. I think we all understood by now what metaverses are, but how can it concern the culture sector? Well, again, it's a new grammar. We have devices that are accessible. You have stores that exist, like Oculus, for instance, and it's making it possible to travel to artworks, to experience emotions. For 2 years, I have worked on a great project, which was the fire of Notre Dame in Paris. The world was very moved by that event 2 years ago, and Orange wanted to participate in rebuilding this place through funding, but also through an interesting app and developing an experience for French people and tourists, and 30% of the ticket will be paid to rebuilding the cathedral. So we've developed this project with a French startup. We've launched it on the 15th of January this year in La Défense. It's a huge success. As somebody in charge of the project, it's really exciting to see the families, the grandparents, the grandchildren to discover this experience. It's both cultural, it's also educational. It's multi-generational. We have schools that are coming to understand the history of Notre Dame in the various periods. You really enter the history of France through this prism. So it's fascinating to see, and sometimes people are very moved after the visit that lasts 45 minutes. You have a VR headset and you have a backpack to go through the experience. So can you tell us, maybe the video is going to show this and then we can discuss this. So the principle is that you arrive in a big room with several people. Everybody has a backpack which contains the technology and a headset with virtual reality, and you just move around as if you were there. The starting perspective is that, unfortunately, very few people have a VR headset at home. It's expensive, and it's not something that is quite yet amongst the public. So it's 600 meters squared with dedicated equipment that is adjusted to the period, to the experience, and you've got a headset that is connected to the backpack, and so all of the groups move in this space. There's no possible shock. You can see avatars walking around, and for 45 minutes you walk around in a space. You walk around and you're inside the cathedral, except when you look at them, it's just people with a backpack and a VR headset in a blank space. And this allows them to meet characters, various periods of the cathedral, and it's quite an expedition. And to having tested it, it's really immersive. How does the visit happen? There's a guide over there to guide the visitors? Well, we're talking about a new grammar. You also need the discourse and the person who is bringing them. So this guide, who is an avatar, supports every group, every participant in the discovery of the place. So he goes through very specific places that you don't see in real life. So there's this part that is really educational throughout the experience. And here it is at the Grande Arche of La Défense, under the piazza in front of Notre Dame de Paris. We're going to open a space that will be open in September. And at the same period, we're going to develop and launch and publish a VR app on the Oculus store and on the HTC store to bring this experience to the world. So people in Asia and the US, in Latin America, who have a virtual reality headset can download the app. It will be less expensive than the ticket in Paris, but 30% of the price will be paid to the reconstruction of Paris. It's a way to bring this experience beyond France, but you could also have the physical space outside, further abroad in France, and then through the French embassies elsewhere in the U.S. or elsewhere to find sponsors and find physical spaces, because it's a social experience as well. It's something that people do together, and I saw people hold one another's hand by walking around. They need to be connected because they're not just scared of VR, but also because they're sharing the emotion. We were talking about sharing the emotions. You want to share things when you go to the movies, when you listen to music, and in culture as well.
So now let's watch a video and see what this is all about. It just lasts for a minute.
Ça donne envie.
Very exciting. Okay, we talked about the multi-generational aspect of this. Who are you targeting with this experience? Would that be everyone? An additional question, how much does all that cost? Are these astronomical sums, or I'm sure it depends on what exactly you're wanting to do, but, well, as regards the public, the big surprise is to see any and all types of profiles, from the youngest to grandparents, so it's quite broad. Mostly also people who've never even tried virtual reality experiences, sometimes people who are a bit confused or disconcerted by disconnecting with reality, because you do disconnect a bit with reality. But you have to underscore the fact that this type of experience is that you're in movement with the possessing in the backpack. So you can't, in fact, you're not duped so to the point where you would physically fall or be sick. Because your internal ear helps you understand, it controls what you're doing, right? So it's a virtual experience, and but it corresponds to a physical experience, right? So it's the stage is moving, and if you had the stage moving and your body not moving, we can't do that. That doesn't work, because your brain gets confused, and your brain holds a negative memory of that. So here, what we do is we embrace the body's movements, and the body assimilates that really well. So it's very open. The public is quite broad. We have people from abroad, people from outside of Paris. So it's a cultural outing. Like when people go to a museum or actually walk into a cathedral and they come back, there's no real competition between they'll go back to see the physical monuments, because there's no competition there. Because you go to a place, you have a guide, you have all the options. So it's not just it's a moment of sharing where you sort of let go. It can be a museum where you just hang out, but we really want to make it a learning experience, cultural experience, understanding things, so it's complementary. And this is how we broach it. What about the cost, though? Well, we don't really give out the full amount of the whole project. But it's similar to, say, video games or a movie, making a movie or something. We're looking at hundreds of thousands of euros. And it's over 2 years of development of a certain amount, though. So it's a specific project. It's a particular type of project, and it involves emotion from everyone. And Orange is totally on board with this, playing a role, also participating in the funding, but also with innovation for the greatest number of people. So in France, we have the French emblem. It's emblematic for France. So we have the public. Okay, well, thank you very much, Morgan. We've got a couple of minutes for Q&A. Questions for Morgan right now. Nobody? No questions? I have one. Okay, how long? So who had the idea to create this immersive world for Notre Dame? And how long did it take for you to develop that technology? Thank you for the question. As I was saying in the intro, we've been working on this for several years now. We'd already developed some experiences. They were mostly promotional in the beginning for different things for the Orange, for OCS, our cable service here. So different projects in immersion, different themes, but the idea just sort of emerged naturally. And what we were offering to just make that a reality following the event, and then things went relatively quickly, and once we got going, we got organized. It took about 2 years to turn into the actual project. So a development project takes time to be developed, but something that's really important. We did this in a partnership with the diocese and the public authorities. So we had all the historians, specialists from the location and the topic who verified each element in our narration, the decor and everything. So it was quite a substantial undertaking, but it makes it a really sophisticated, finalized product. And it's really and it really respects the actual location. Okay, one final question. Right. I was wondering if you already did a similar initiative, if you already gotten started for other projects, say with other monuments or museums. We haven't started a project yet with museums. In my role, what I do is I look around and see everything that's going on and look at the systems, and I'm interested. Notre Dame was a very specific subject, and with the issues, and it wasn't very happy, what happened. But we look at other options to support these types of ecosystems, so immersive and metaverse subjects. So they're all voxels, it's volumes, and for 3D, they require a lot of bandwidth and cloud computing and so on and so forth. So looking at accompanying these sort of ecosystems and developing these types of experience are really of interest for us. We do see lots of initiatives, and we will be seeing more and more of this in the upcoming years. Thank you very much, Morgan. Thank you, all of you, for being present here. I'm going to stay on stage, but I'm sorry, Morgan, I will then invite you to step off, and you can applaud him. Thank you.
Merci infiniment à vous deux.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Morgan.